Assistive technology is any sort of aid that helps people function independently. It can include anything as small as pencil grips or a magnifying glass.
Hello there. My name is Monica Burns, and welcome to today's bonus episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. If you're used to joining me on Tuesdays for new episodes, you are in for a treat. This is a special bonus episode of the podcast in partnership with Beacon College. Just like on Tuesdays, these bonus episodes are designed to give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. If we mention something you'd like to check out, you can find the link to it in the show notes. So don't forget to head to my website, easyedtechpodcast.com, for all of the links and resources from today's episode. This episode is sponsored by Beacon College, the first accredited college in the United States specifically for students with learning differences like ADHD, dyslexia, and executive functioning challenges. Beacon offers personalized academic support, small class sizes, and a strengths-based approach that helps students thrive in college and beyond. Learn more about how Beacon is changing what's possible for neurodivergent learners at beaconcollege.edu. That's Beacon, B-E-A-C-O-N, college.edu. Today's episode is titled How AI is Changing Assistive Technology in Education, a bonus episode with Beacon College. Today we're taking a deep dive into the intersection of AI and student support with Sam Owens and Shauna Misir from Beacon College. As learning specialists and advisors who lead their college's AI and technology committees, they have a unique perspective on the tools that actually make a difference for neurodivergent learners. We talk about how AI is reshaping assistive technology, from streamlining organization to providing more personalized support for processing and writing. So many ways that AI is impacting AT, or assistive technology. If you're curious about how AI can create a more inclusive classroom, this conversation is for you. So many great insights, strategies, and a handful of tools to consider adding to your tool belt too. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you both about the topic of AI and how AI is changing assistive technology in education. But before we get into those pieces, would love to hear a little bit about your role in education and what your day-to-day looks like. Maybe Sam, we can start with you.
Of course. So my name is Sam or Samantha Owens. I am a freshman and sophomore learning specialist at Beacon College and also serve as an academic advisor in that role. I am the chairperson of the AI committee at the college as well and oversee our freshman seminar course called the Beacon Experience. When I work with students, we focus a lot on building things like executive functioning skills. So prioritization, task initiation, things like that. And it does incorporate a lot of assistive technology and AI into that role.
Yeah, amazing. I would imagine, right, a lot of pieces there, right, influenced by some of the big changes with AI over the past few years. Shauna, what about your role?
Yes, hi, I'm Shauna Misir. I'm also a freshman and sophomore learning specialist and academic advisor. I'm a chairperson of the technology committee at Beacon College. Just to go into a little bit more depth about learning specialists, we meet one-on-one in our office and we have meetings with each of our students. We check on any missing assignments. We make plans for any upcoming projects and assignments together. So it really does help to identify if students need additional support with assistive technology, but also if we need to connect them with additional resources, because we also have like community educators and an occupational therapist. So we help students in that way within our meetings, but also I teach one of the sections for the first year seminar course, the Beacon Experience.
Amazing. And so, with both of your perspectives and experience, and we talk about this idea of assistive technology. When educators hear that phrase, assistive technology today, what should they understand it to include, especially as AI enters the picture? Maybe Shauna, you can share with us.
Sure. So, assistive technology is any sort of aid that helps people function independently. It can include anything as small as pencil grips or a magnifying glass, and those would be considered low tech tools. I think what we're pretty much focusing on now is the high tech tools. So, that would be screen readers or speech generating technology, maybe text to speech and speech to text. So, when we talk about AI, that is a type of computer science that develops systems and it performs complex human like tasks and it happens very quickly without a lot of human intervention. It also learns from us as we use it more. So it's important to recognize that as we move forward into the future now, AI is embedded into almost all of these high tech tools. And we need to understand what that means. Like, on one hand, we have people saying that AI is interrupting critical thinking skills. And on the other hand, though, we're seeing with our students who are neurodiverse that it's actually helping our students express themselves way more clearly. It's helping to improve those communication skills and where they were lacking to make sure that they are sending appropriate communication to not just their professors and their classmates, but also when they carry those skills towards their career. We're noticing that AI is playing a big part in that.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, Shauna, about some of the, the understandable, right, hesitation or pushbacks one might have about this type of technology in certain scenarios, right? On the other hand, right, this is having a really big impact on the way that students learn inside of classrooms and how everyone, right, outside of education is interacting in different spaces if they're in need of assistive technology. So, Sam, can you share some examples of how AI supports reading, writing, organization, or processing for students who may struggle in those areas?
So the great thing is that that's a question I could talk about for a very long time because there are so many tools. There's so many really cool things that are available to help students in those areas. And what's great is that a lot of them are very easily accessible right now. So things like text to speech tools that
Mhm.
can help students with dyslexia or students with ADHD who might have a hard time focusing if they're not also hearing what they're reading are built into so many different websites and programs now. One really cool use of large language models like ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini is that you can take text that is maybe very complex. So especially with the
Mhm.
students that we work with, that's a very common thing is that they have this text for a class that they need to read. And you can put it into that large language model and you can have it give you a like a lower level version of it, or even just like a simplified summary of it so that students are still able to access the same content just on the level where they're at. Another really cool thing, and I use this one myself, is there's a lot of support for vocabulary, whether it's definitions or synonyms or like getting examples while reading. In Microsoft Edge, which I love using, if you highlight a word and then click on that word, right click on the word, it gives you an option to actually just send that word to Copilot and then immediately gives you the prompt of like explain the word in the text based on the starting page content. So it's giving students or anyone using it the definition, but in the context of what they're reading, which can be incredibly helpful and without them having to go off to a different page. And sometimes, managing multiple different things at once can be really difficult. For writing, things like those large language models, again, are really helpful in the class that both Shauna and I teach for Beacon Experience. One of the exercises that we're doing with students is to kind of help them overcome some of that anxiety they may feel when they see that page sitting in front of them. So we're teaching them how to use like Copilot or Gemini, again, a large language model, to get sentence starters or like paragraph scaffolding so that
Mhm.
they can then go on and complete that assignment on their own. And then one of my favorite things is NotebookLM, which, yeah, it's wonderful. It's
Mhm.
great for anytime you need that like multimodal option for
Mhm.
students. You can take text or you can take like a link and you can put it into NotebookLM and get a podcast overview, a video overview, infographics, flashcards, like whatever format you might be looking for, you can get that and really help students like when they can identify how they learn best, you can then push them towards that tool to get the content in the format they learn best in. And I have one more really cool one. Goblin Tools. Goblin Tools for Organization is another one that we cover in our Beacon Experience class and that we introduce to our students too. It has a tool called Magic To Do. And basically what you can do is you put in a task and it can be academic or non-academic. And it breaks assignments into chunks. And it in order too. So for students who are maybe struggling with some of that organization, this is a great way for them to know where to start even, because sometimes that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, those are such great examples. Yeah, Shauna, jump in, please.
All right, just wanted to jump in really quickly to give an example of what I noticed with working with one of my students and kind of like the pro and con in this kind of scenario. So one of my students, I noticed he would come into my office and write an assignment and it was okay. It wasn't too bad, but we noticed him and the teachers as well. We noticed that what he was actually submitting looked very, very different. It almost looked like gibberish. And it wasn't until we sat down together and we looked at the process of what he was doing. He was using Grammarly, and every single time something was underlined, he would just accept it. He wasn't really looking at what it was actually fixing. So he was just, anytime he saw a red line or any sort of like recommendation, he was just accepting all of it to the point where the sentence didn't make any sense. And he was just trusting that the AI and the AT was doing it for him. So we were able to fix that process a little bit. And we practiced using AT and AI together in a way that it really helped him to understand the content, but also making sure that his assignments were actually a better quality. So what we did now is we would follow a practice where he would take the instructions, put it into a large language model, kind of like ChatGPT or Gemini, ask it to simplify it in a way that he could understand it better. Then he would take that, put it into a text-to-speech where he can listen to it to help with his processing. He would then use text-to-speech to record his answers and then have it read it back to him so he could fully understand what he was actually submitting for his assignments. So that's just an example of a good view, and then also how we can help with, making it a little bit better for them.
Yeah, and just helping students choose their moments, right? And the examples you both gave, I think, really paint a picture for someone who's listening and trying to, see how this might fit into the work that they do. Even something, Sam, like you mentioned about the definition, right? We might be used to saying, I don't know what that word means. I'm going to go to a search engine and type it in. However, with this layer of AI or that co-pilot connection you mentioned, now it's giving that definition in context, right? So it's like going even beyond things that we might have thought were helpful in the past, right? That extra layer. And so I'm thinking for someone who's wondering what this might look like in their own environment to, take advantage of some of these assistive technology tools that are out there. These are such great ways for them to put it together, in their work. So Shauna, can you tell us a little bit, how can educators introduce these tools in students in a way that really feels supportive?
Right. So it really does depend on the subject, right? So for a lot of the written assignments, we've seen teachers that would allow students to use AI as a writing consultant. So they would be able to submit their assignments that they have worked on first and then get feedback on ways to improve their assignments before then taking it to our writing center or to their professor for office hours to have them look at. And it's not to generate content, it's to get that first sense of feedback so they can do that independently on their own first. There are also other classes that are more research based and they have very large amounts of text and journal articles. It can be really intimidating to see those articles that are 40 pages long and then have to do multiple of those and read all of those and get all the information from it. So something like NotebookLM, where you can have about 50 articles uploaded in there and you can ask it questions and have the answers pull it from those articles, it helps them to engage more with those readings and to understand it better on their terms. For Beacon Experience specifically, we designed assignments that use AI and we build those into our assignments, but also give students boundaries. So, for example, one of the assignments that we were working on recently, it was a way to help students form those emails, professional emails. And what we had students do first is create a disaster email. So, one that doesn't follow the rules, it's not too rude, but still following some like going against those conventions. So using capitalization and using emoticons. And then they first generate that email and then they put it into Goblin Tools and it has a tool called Formulizer. And what it does is it takes that original email and makes it sound way more professional, polished, and it helps with the tone of the email as well, which is something our students struggle with a lot. So now they have that before and that after, and then we do a reflection where they can actually compare it to see what the differences are for themselves, but it's not taking away from the learning outcome there. Another great tool that is good to introduce students to would be Napkin AI. This is an awesome tool that was originally free. I believe it was in beta testing. Now there is a paid version of it though. But it is amazing because students can now put information in there and it creates an infographic. And some of those students really love those visuals. And it's great, yeah, for them to understand the material, but it's also great for educators too, because it allows us to make those infographics to pass those along to students too. And it's very customizable. It gives you a lot of tips in there. It has AI to help you write the actual prompts in there. But I think that's also a really awesome way to introduce the tools to students.
Yeah, and the engagement piece you mentioned a few times, right? That the idea that you're, as a student, engaging with this content in a different way, whether it's an infographic, whether it's some of the things NotebookLM can do, which you both mentioned. And Shauna, you said something earlier about, the boundaries, right? When you're introducing some of these tools. So what questions should educators or administrators ask, before adopting an AI-powered assistive tool that they might bring in, to the work that they do?
I think it's really important to first check with your organization and see what direction they want to take when it comes to adopting an AI. Especially, for example, we need to make sure we're mindful of HIPAA and FERPA. So we need to make sure that whatever we're choosing, it's going to make sure that we're following the rules of our organization and making sure that the students' information remains private. So that's very important. The other thing I would recommend is take some sort of training or attend some sort of conference to see what other people are talking about. And that's a really great way to get some more exposure to the different tools out there. There's so many. There's so many right now. So it's great to see what other people are saying. And then also try it for yourself. Because I feel like students, if you are just using something for the first time, students can tell. They can definitely pick up on the fact that you haven't played around with it. So I highly encourage everyone to just try it. Like dip your toe in it, see what happens. And when it comes to having students use it, then encourage appropriate use and create those boundaries for students to stay in. And also, it also helps to pick one specific one and move forward with it. There are so many out there that it can be difficult to pick a specific one. I mean, it kind of depends on the institution you work for. We have Microsoft products at our school, so we want to maybe lean towards Copilot. But then Gemini does an amazing job with generating images. So we want to make sure that we are still respecting what our organization is trying to move forward with too. And also keep in mind that these are always changing. I heard in passing somewhere that it was said an AI tool is going to come out every single week, a new one, every single week for the rest of our lives. And we have to keep that in mind as we move forward, that it is always changing. By the time we finish this podcast, some of the things we've mentioned will probably have new tools. So it's kind of something that we have to keep in mind as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate what you said too about, a lot of things are out there, right? It might be bright and shiny, right? But you want to make sure that you're thoughtful, right? When picking a tool, maybe sticking with just one or two things, making sure, the strategy is there first, right? What is it that you're trying to accomplish with this tool? And, Sam, Shauna alluded to like things moving really quickly in this space. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you see AI reshaping assistive technology over the next few years in K-12 settings?
So while we both work in the college setting right now, I did actually come from K-12 before the college setting. So it's very interesting to think about how it's going to change.
Yeah.
Obviously, access to technology in general varies per district, even. But I think one of the really cool things is I feel like with where we're going with AI and AT and how it is becoming so much more integrated into everything, that that inequities sometimes that we see in accessibility or with schools being able to access technology, I think is going to kind of decrease a little bit. I think there's going to be an improvement in access, especially for underserved students previously, because you have things that are just built into everything. There are speech to text tools and text to speech tools and AI and language models that are free and accessible to everyone, no matter where you are. Probably one of the coolest things that I've noticed recently is Microsoft Edge has the immersive reader feature
Mhm.
where students can be like reading something on the web and use the immersive reader to remove some of the distractions from the page, which is great for many of the students that we work with. And then Microsoft also has built-in text to speech. Microsoft computers have just, the Windows P and H brings up text to speech right there. There's so many things that are no longer behind paywalls that used to be. So I think the biggest thing that I can really hope to see in the future in K-12 with AI and UT is that it's going to be easily accessible. It's going to help teachers personalize learning without it taking up so much time. It might
Mhm.
even start to help improve some inclusion because we're going to have ways to quickly differentiate content for students. So that's my hope.
Yeah, right. And just from what you're seeing, right, students who might be complete, right, with K-12 and now coming into the work that they do with you, right, all of those things, right, impact the full learning journey, right, of a student, right. And I'm sure, right, in both spaces, we'll see lots and lots of changes, right, over the next, shorter period of time than we might have said, in the past. So as we finish up together today, anyone who's listening in the show notes page, right where they're listening to this episode, they'll be able to click on things, connect with you both, learn about some of the tools that you mentioned. But for someone who's maybe, on the move and making a mental bookmark to circle back later, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
So we both work at Beacon College. So the website, beaconcollege.edu, is a great way to see some of the really cool things that we do. And it also has our contact information, our email addresses are listed there. And then I believe we sent you our LinkedIn as
Mhm.
well. So everybody is more than welcome to connect with us there too.
Perfect. Well, I just am so appreciative of both of your time today, tackling not only a big topic of AI, but what this means for assistive technology and what educators will be able to jump into, after today. So thank you both so much for your time, your expertise, and all of this great actionable information that you shared today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was lots of fun chatting with Sam and Shauna. Let's finish up this episode with a few key points to help make this EdTech easy. AI helps neurodiverse students access reading, writing, and vocabulary through tools like text-to-speech, summaries, scaffolds, and contextual definitions. Tools such as NotebookLM, Goblin Tools, and Copilot can support students with a variety of needs. When choosing AI tools, educators must consider FERPA, HIPAA, talk to their institution, and try out tools themselves. AI will likely expand accessibility in K-12 by making personalization faster and more scalable. Remember, you can find the show notes and full list of resources from today's episode by heading to easyedtechpodcast.com, including all of the ways to connect with the team at Beacon College. Thanks again to Beacon College for sponsoring this episode. If you're looking for a college experience built for how neurodivergent students actually learn, visit beaconcollege.edu to explore college readiness resources, academic programs, and admissions options. That's Beacon, B-E-A-C-O-N, college.edu. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or another favorite app, don't forget to hit the follow button. When you follow along with the podcast, each new episode will download for you automatically so you don't miss a thing. And if you have a moment and are feeling extra helpful today, please leave a rating or review for the podcast. It helps other educators find episodes like this one when they're searching for topics like EdTech or assistive technology in their podcast app. Have a great week and check back on Tuesday morning for next week's new episode.